When they speak of peace, missiles fly. How signals from Washington coincided with one of Russia's largest strikes on Ukraine. In early March 2026, the international politics surrounding Russia's war against Ukraine once again demonstrated a recurring paradox. Whenever talks of peace deals begin to surface in the international arena, Russia responds with new strikes on Ukrainian cities. The period from March 5th to March 7th, 2026 became a textbook example of this logic. First, signals emerged from Washington regarding the easing of sanctions and the possibility of a peace deal. Just days later, Russia carried out one of its largest aerial assaults on Ukraine, resulting in numerous civilian casualties. On March 5th, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, through the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, issued General License 133, which allows for the winding down of transactions involving Russian oil that had already been loaded onto tankers as of that date. The license permits the sale, transportation, and unloading of Russian oil in Indian ports until April 4, 2026. Effectively, this constituted a temporary easing of the sanctions regime on the Russian energy sector. On the same day, OFAC published another document, General License 129A, which allows financial transactions with Rosneft Deutschland GmbH and RN Refining and Marketing GmbH. Thus, the German subsidiaries of Rosneft were effectively shielded from sanction pressure to avoid disruptions in the European energy market. Furthermore, on March 6th, OFAC removed the UAE-based company Globetrekkers LLC from the SDN sanctions list. These steps appeared to be a targeted softening of sanctions rather than tightening them. Against this backdrop, U.S. President Donald Trump gave an interview to Politico that immediately sparked heated debate. In it, he directly stated that the president of Ukraine must be more proactive in agreeing to a peace deal. Zelensky has to get on the ball, and he has to get a deal done, Trump said. Trump also claimed that Russia is ready for negotiations. I think Putin is ready to make a deal, he said. In another comment, he emphasized that Ukraine's negotiating position is weak, noting that President Zelensky has no cards in the negotiations. Such statements became part of a broader U.S. rhetoric regarding the need for a swift end to the war through a negotiated settlement. And then, following the words that Putin is ready for peace, the miracle happens again. On the night of March 6-7, 2026, Russia launched one of its largest combined aerial strikes on Ukraine in recent times. According to Ukrainian authorities, the following were deployed: 480 strike drones, 29 missiles of various types, totaling over 500 means of aerial attack. The weaponry used included Iskander-M ballistic missiles, Zircon hypersonic missiles, Caliber cruise missiles, and Shaheds strike UAVs. The strikes targeted Kiev, Kharkiv, Zhytomyr, Khmelnytsky, Odessa, and Chernivtsi regions. The greatest tragedy occurred in Kharkiv, where a Russian ballistic missile hit a 5-story residential building, completely destroying one of the sections. Preliminary data indicates at least 10 deaths, including 2 children, over 15 people injured, 19 residential buildings, utility networks, and commercial premises damaged. The events of March 2026 do not look like a random coincidence. If we look at the chronology of 2025 to 2026, a disturbing pattern emerges. Every time the U.S. or other mediators activate the negotiation track, announce progress, pressure Kiev for a deal, or publicly speak of Putin's readiness for compromise, Russia frequently responds not with de-escalation, but with massive new strikes. This is not a mathematical formula or proof of direct coordination, but it is a sufficiently consistent political-military pattern to be impossible to ignore. In March 2025, this mechanism manifested almost demonstratively. On March 7th, Russia carried out its first major missile strike after the U.S. suspended intelligence sharing with Ukraine, while Donald Trump was pushing for a quick end to the war. The strike hit energy and gas infrastructure. Reuters materials directly linked this attack to additional pressure on Kyiv amid the American negotiation course. Later, in late March and early April 2025, after the U.S. claimed to have reached an understanding with Russia and Ukraine on two strike restriction regimes, including an agreement not to hit energy infrastructure, Russia launched its first massive missile and drone attack on April 6th since those agreements were made. This was the first major attack following the announced ceasefire accords. Volodymyr Zelensky stated that these strikes proved Moscow's unwillingness to end the war. Between these events, another particularly telling episode occurred in Kryvyi Rih on April 4, 2025. A Russian strike on a residential area claimed 19 lives, including 9 children. This attack was one of the deadliest against civilians in months and undermined Washington's ceasefire push. This is what Russian tactics look like. At the moment diplomacy tries to create even the appearance of a path to a truce, the Kremlin demonstrates that its real instrument is fear, not compromise. This logic appeared even more harshly on April 13, 2025 in Sumy, when 2 Russian ballistic missiles hit the city center, killing 35 people and wounding 117. The strike occurred just as Trump's attempt to quickly end the war hit a dead end. Russia struck Sumy again the very next day. This does not resemble the behavior of a party seeking a peaceful exit. It resembles a party trying to improve its negotiating position through terror. Then came May 2025. On May 16th, the first direct negotiations between Ukrainian and Russian delegations in over 3 years took place under pressure from Trump, who demanded a ceasefire. By May 18th, Russia launched 273 drones at Ukraine, the largest drone attack of the war at that time. Immediately following a negotiating contact that could have been used for de-escalation, Moscow chose the opposite, an even higher level of violence. In July 2025, the pattern repeated almost verbatim. Following a July 3 phone call between Trump and Putin, which yielded no results but kept the theme of peaceful settlement in the media spotlight, Russia began a massive attack on Kyiv just hours later. The July 4th strike was the largest drone attack on the capital, occurring hours after the Trump-Putin call. This is a very revealing episode. As soon as a window for a new diplomatic interpretation of the Kremlin's intentions opens, Russia fills that window with fire. The same happened in December 2025. On December 23rd, a broad Russian missile and drone strike caused at least 3 deaths. This attack immediately followed peace talks in Miami. On December 27th, another major attack, around 500 drones and 40 missiles, according to Zelensky, was presented by the Ukrainian side as the Russian response to Washington's ongoing peace efforts. By the end of 2025, this model had become almost recognizable. Yet, miraculously, the U.S. neither sees nor hears these attacks. Time and again, words about Putin's readiness for peace and Ukraine's stubbornness are repeated. In reality, the situation is such that Ukraine cannot stop while it is being killed. Stopping would mean death. Pressure must be applied to the aggressor to make him stop, because only when he abandons the desire to kill will everything end. Against this backdrop, another news item sounds particularly telling. The U.S. and its partners have turned to Ukraine for help in countering Iranian drones, as Ukraine has accumulated the most valuable practical experience in fighting Shaheds over the years of war. The Washington Post reported that the Trump administration effectively asked Kyiv to share its approaches to counter drone defense, indicating a growing interest in Ukrainian interceptors and tactics. This creates an almost symbolic scene. While the U.S. speaks of a deal with the Kremlin, America simultaneously is forced to learn from Ukraine how to shoot down the very weapons Russia uses to terrorize Ukrainian cities every night. One must understand the absurdity of the moment. While the same weapons, and one could say the same enemy, destroy Ukraine and have begun to threaten U.S. military personnel, pressure continues to be applied to Ukraine to make concessions to the Kremlin. This logic is very difficult to grasp. That is why today it is increasingly difficult to perceive talk of Putin's readiness for peace without critical distance. Throughout 2025 to 2026, we see the same sequence over and over. A diplomatic signal, a pause for expectation, a Russian strike. This doesn't prove that every shelling is a direct reaction to a specific statement, but it convincingly shows something else. The Kremlin systematically uses the negotiating backdrop, not for de-escalation, but to ramp up pressure on Ukraine. Its real message is delivered not in words, but in missile trajectories. Moscow does not want a just peace. It wants the capitulation of Kyiv, amidst constant exhaustion, destruction, and civilian loss. Nevertheless, and despite Russia continuing to strike civilian infrastructure and persist in its armed aggression, Ukraine remains a country that not only defends itself, but also inflicts daily losses on Russian troops and increases deep strikes against Russia's critical infrastructure. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Subscribe and stay with us. Glory to Ukraine.